My father was a chess grandmaster. I was on track to become a chess grandmaster. So
he was a legitimate chess grandmaster.
My father was the highest rated black chess player in history.
Really?
Yeah. So my father was a big G in chess.
Yeah.
So I kind of grew up around all these chess geniuses, which is a really unusual way to grow up because you have like ex-KGB guys, you have complete autists. Like everyone's a weirdo, right? You're not that good at chess to be normal.
What happened to you?
Yeah. I'm weird too, I guess. I don't know. But it was kind of weird, like growing up around all this hyper intelligence. And like even my father, a lot of people say, oh, I know this guy, he's really smart, or I know this guy has a photographic memory. No. And I'm not just saying this because he's my dad. When you've met true supreme intelligence, I've never met anybody else in the world who had the level of intelligence he had.
So like when you're like a grandmaster at chess, like Fisher chess, which my understanding is that they just scramble up all the pieces and you just look at the board.
Yeah.
He could pretty much beat anyone in the world.
Yeah, it's more than even that. It's more just like the ability to supremely recall information. When I was with my father, if he needed your phone number, he'd ask, what's your phone number? And you'd say it once, and that was it for the rest of his life. He didn't have to write it down. You tell him an address, that was it for the rest of his life. He never wrote anything down. He never had to repeat anything to him. My father, when he died, someone messaged me who was because my father was in the CIA. He held the record of the CIA record for the fastest assimilation of a foreign language. My father learned Russian within 2.5 weeks from zero. Like
really?
he would just read a book. He just read the dictionary. Like to these people, it's just like, just read it. When my dad died, James Altucher, do you know who he is? But James Altucher, you can ask him about my dad. Him and James played a game and it was a draw in the end. And James did a tribute to my father saying that he was just a scary dude. Like he was just supremely smart, right? So
when you were growing up, did you know your dad was in the CIA?
He had left the military by the time I was like 3 when he left.
Got it.
To pursue chess. So yeah, he was a linguist. He knew like 4 languages and he was a professional chess player. And I grew up around this absolute supreme intelligence. And I always knew, even when I was a child, that I was smart, but I wasn't that smart. Like my beautiful mother watered me down. Like I didn't have what he had. Like he was complete. He remembered every chess game he'd ever played. So you could be sitting there and he'd say, oh, I played him in 1982, and he'll just go through the whole game. Or he could beat you at chess without looking at the board. So you'd have a board in front of you and say E4. He'd be in another room, C5, knight F3, knight C6, and he'd be cooking dinner and he'd fucking smoke you.
Really?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. He'd play simultaneouses where he played like 100 people in a row. So they'd sit there and they'd think, and he'd just go board to board, just make quick moves. He played a blind simultaneous where I'm just talking about different you have a board and he has nothing. He played 3 people at once blind, beat them all. That's how good grandmasters are. This is what people don't understand about chess. Chess, I'm a kickboxing world champion, and I'm telling you, forget the UFC, forget kickboxing. The hardest sport in the world is world level chess. These guys are wired different. You can't learn it. You either have it or you don't.
So how do you go from your dad being so intelligent, so successful at chess to wanting to kickbox?
Because to me, they're the same thing.
Okay, why?
Because I was growing up with chess, and then my mother and father split up. My mom was English, wanted to go back to England. I was 10 or 11. We went back, and in America, chess is quite big in the schools. And obviously, I had my father as a coach who would take me to tournaments, all these things. I lost my...
So you played a lot as a kid?
I was state chess champion age 5 in Indiana, the under 16s. I was the youngest to ever win it. I remember I was sitting there across from some 16-year-old. When you're like 5.5, that's scary, right? And I remember when I beat him, he cried. That made me happy. I was like, ha ha. Not so big now.
Hold on. At 5 years old, you were the Indiana State chess champion.
In the under 16s, yeah. So I was the youngest to ever win it. So I was on the way to becoming a grandmaster.
Did you watch Queen's Gambit? I'm assuming everyone's asked you about this.
I haven't watched it because I believe it's feminist Hollywood garbage and it's propagating the demise of masculinity amongst the population. So sorry to give you a Alex Jones answer, but the answer is no, because it's just feminist garbage and it ain't true.
Why do you believe that?
I believe that because that's what's obviously happening. I mean, there are talented female players, but they're not nearly as talented as the men overall. They're not nearly as good as the men overall. I think the best female in the world is like number 50 in the world if you incorporate men. And I believe that Hollywood takes every single chance it can to empower females to the point of reducing men's ability to look like a man, right? They just want to... It's feminist propaganda. That's all it is. This woman comes along. She's beautiful. Everyone doesn't take her seriously. She beats them all at chess. Every dude in every movie is getting beaten up by a chick. That's not real. Whenever you watch something on TV in every sitcom, the mom's the smart one. The dad's the bumbling idiot. Like, I just feel like men are kind of under attack in culture. So I'm not going to sit there and watch a chess movie, which I know is absolute fantasy, which is just propagating females beating men at something else they don't beat men at. They don't win.
What's the best female chess player of all time?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you have any clue that have they ever been top 10, top 5? Has
No,
anyone ever
it's
been
going to be like, I think maybe top 20, maybe top 30 at most, never top 10.
Okay. And so how big is the difference between top 10 and top 20 or top 30?
It's pretty big. And although in
if number 5 sits down with number 25, is it just 99 out of 100 times number 5 wins, or
more like 70, 75%, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Because what happens in chess is, especially if you're really good, even if you're in a losing position, you can push for a draw, right? So it's very hard to beat someone better than you. You might get a draw out of them, but to actually beat them, actually to crush them is difficult. And this is what my dad was so known for. My dad is famous in the chess community to this day. Tate was his name. They called him E.T., as in the alien. Because my dad was one of the only players who would never take a draw. And he would rather lose in a blistering blitzkrieg fashion than take a draw, right? So he had some big losses, but he also had some fantastic crushing victories where he just went all out. He was really on the board. It was blitzkrieg. He just come at you with everything. And everyone to this day, even when he died, James Altucher was talking about him saying, I never played a guy who played chess like that. The guy was just crazy. Yeah. So he was a crazy